So I'd like to welcome Governor Bush, and thank you so much. I'm fresh off a plane from Atlanta, and we have to say a special thanks because we know you reorganized your schedule so that you could be here with us today to have this conversation.
It's a real joy to be here, and it's a particularly joy because we're going to talk about policy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, sir, without further ado, you heard the introduction by Todd. Share with us your plan to help keep Social Security solvent for the next several decades.
Well, first of all, one of the ways to look at this is and a friend of mine has come up with a formula called the dependency ratio. And that would be people that are at retirement age added together with people under the age of 18 divided by the rest of the population. And you might guess that Florida would be maybe number one in that ratio, and we are. And every state, in 20 years, every state will be ahead of what Florida is today. We're getting younger, really, in some level, and we're getting older at the same time. And the people that provide the resources for both the young and the old are getting smaller as a percentage of the population. It's a reality. It's not something you can just say it's going to go away. It's just demography truly is destiny. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because we're aging longer. I'm for that. I don't know about you. I for one, hope I'm 10 years from now, I'm still up and taking nourishment. Everybody in this room will be, I hope. So we have to confront this. It's an opportunity to transform our programs that have been so vital for people over the long haul. And I've laid out a very, very detailed plan to do that. It starts with recognizing that we need to raise the retirement age. And my plan starts to raise the retirement age a month for every year starting in 2022. The objective is to preserve and protect what we have today for everybody that is receiving it, but begin to prepare going forward for people in their 50s for Social Security that's not going to go bankrupt. And so raising the retirement age would be part of that. We propose, secondly, a lifting up of the minimum benefit minimum check for Social Security that would be equal to 125% of the poverty level, not 80% of the poverty level, to make sure that there is a safety net that allows people to be able to age with dignity, age in place, and age based on the contributions they've made to our society. And for people of higher income, we would lower the benefit. And the net result is that you would have a more solvent system by doing those three things. The other proposals that we've laid out, and this has been measured by the actuarial nerds out there that are not part of my campaign, whatever you call them, that's what I call them. And the proposal we've laid out based on the folks that follow this stuff, we would preserve and protect Social Security for 75 years. But there's more to this. I think for people that have to work or want to work that are at retirement age, they should not have to pay the payroll tax, the employee portion of the payroll tax, the 6+%. You've already put into the retirement system. It seems to me that the best way to enhance your retirement is to be able to keep that money. And so that's part of our proposal. Secondly, retiring early is of better benefit than retiring at the 66 year rather than 62. We propose modifying that a bit because more and more people are having to work so that the benefit is greater for those that wait till the end rather than for the 62-year-old number. That, by the way, would go up to 65. So at the end by 2052, you'd have people retiring at age 70 and early retiring at age 65, but the benefit would be greater for those that were waiting till 70. The final thing I'd say that is important is that when this program was created, and by the way, one of the things I learned, I used to call Social Security an entitlement. And I was in a town hall meeting, it might have been my very first town hall meeting, and some guy in the back goes, "It's not an entitlement!" Literally screaming. And I said, okay, it's a supplemental retirement program that is underfunded. It's not an entitlement. It is, you put money in and you're expecting to get money out, but it's a supplemental retirement program. It was never envisioned to be the end-all and be-all. And so I think we also need to look at incentives to provide support for private savings. And here's some suggestions on that, because and this is where I think AARP can play a huge role in building consensus across the country. Small businesses, it's really hard to set up a 401k for your employees. It's extraordinarily expensive and costly, and there are legal ramifications. Small businesses ought to be able to pool their resources together to create 401ks. It would save a lot of money and it would provide a big incentive for one of the barriers. Secondly, a lot of businesses would be happy to provide direct support to a person's retirement plan, but they don't want to set up a 401k. That's prohibited right now. There ought to be a way to provide direct support, tax deductible, into an employee's personal savings account. And those kinds of things, the Obama administration has an extraordinary rule that people don't follow that carefully, the Department of Labor rule, that's going to make it really hard for moderate income savers to be able to access financial planners. They're basically going to force a whole redrawing of how we go about the financial services business goes about its business. And it has bipartisan support to kill it, but the junior senator from south of here is just insistent on keeping this rule, and it's going to be devastating. We should make it easier for savings to take place. And the final thing I just would add, and this is kind of off topic, but I think it's important, is that we got to get back to a monetary policy that rewards savings and doesn't punish savings. Look, I mean, if you've planned for your retirement based on historical rates of interest to be able to have a conservative portfolio, you've been wiped out by the 0% interest rate policy. The only people that benefit from what we've done over the last 6 or 7 years, the quantitative easing policy of the Federal Reserve, are borrowers. And the only borrowers that are benefiting are large corporates in the public markets and the government. Debt service for the government is lower than it was 12 years ago, but the debt has increased by 250%. This is outrageous. Meanwhile, people that are trying to create jobs, small businesses, don't have access to credit because of the massive regulation, and savers are totally getting you know what. And so I think getting back to a monetary policy where there's a reward for savings in general so people can plan for their retirement is a part of this as well.
So thank you for laying out this plan. I think one of the...
By the way, that was like 5 minutes of unadulterated policy talking, not a single discussion of... No process, no, you know what I mean.
I'd say welcome to New Hampshire, right?
I love New Hampshire.
How do we get it done, and where does this land on your priority list, knowing that this is a conversation that, quite frankly, has been the can that's been kicked down the road more than once in Congress?
Well, look, here's what's going to happen. If nothing happens, depending on who you value in terms of estimations, either in 7 or 8 years or 15 years, Social Security benefits are going to be cut by at least 20%. So we can wait and then have a crisis and everybody's scurrying around with their heads cut off. That's the way Washington works. Or you should ask your president to lead. And there should be what I just described, I think you could create a bipartisan consensus around. Raising the minimum benefit to 125% of the poverty level I don't think people would argue on the left against that. Extending the retirement age in a way that doesn't eliminate an early retirement but gradually goes about this, preserving and protecting it for people that already have it. If we can't forge a bipartisan consensus on that, then we're in trouble as a nation, because we also, right around the corner, right past Social Security, you've got Medicare. And it's broken. And there's going to be dramatic cuts in payments for Medicare as well. And right behind that, you have Medicaid, which is growing at a faster rate than anything in government. So we have to reform all of these things if we're serious about dealing with our deficit and debt. And here's what tell me if I'm wrong about this. The people most concerned about the deficits and the debt in my conversations, in my town hall meetings, and when I'm back in Florida, are older people. Because they don't want to have this burden of their responsibility being passed on to their grandkids. I got 4 grandkids. I love my children. I adore my grandkids. I don't know about you. So it comes into focus now a little bit more that I have a duty as a grandfather to make sure that you're just not overwhelming everything else that exists in the federal government. Weaken our security, not allowing for long-term investing in finding cures for diseases or long-term investing in research and development. We have to solve this and to preserve and protect it for those that have it, but make sure it exists going forward for the next generation. And right now, doing nothing is not a solution.
You've given us a lot to think about. And Governor, thank you very much.
Thank
we
you
really
all.
appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Thanks for letting us come.